In this video we'll take a look at placing requests and some of the pathways that you can do within the function. So when you're in the Results and Requests tab here on the right hand side of the patient's record, click Place Request on the left hand side. Now you'll note the search box here where you can then type in individual requests. FBC for example. Now for UE you would need to put a dot at the end to return it as it needs 3 characters for its auto search. You can also look at the X-rays. I'd suggest you do X or and then a space, which would return the majority of the X-rays there. Same for ultrasound, US and a space. And if you're unsure, you can always use the wildcard, which is the percentage symbol, which again will help return any information. You can also use the percentage symbol at the beginning of the search, which would then return the word that you're looking for within any place in these sentences. So if you are struggling, you can do that. Okay, you can also build your own favourites. There's a separate video on how to build your own favourites, and you can pick from your own list. There's also the request catalogue, which you can look through these pick lists here and you'll be able to see any specific for your area. But I'm just going to go and use the simple search here. So FBC for example, just need to get rid of this screen actually, let me just cancel that. So FBC, and I'm also going to do an X-ray and show you how to do these. So unlike ICM, which would print all the time, Lorenzo you need to ask it to print. So if you do need to print something out to give to the patient, for example one of the pathology forms for them to go to the phlebotomy clinic at a later date, you do need to ensure that you collect the specimen now and ensure that this is ticked. I do appreciate that you won't actually be collecting it in most scenarios, but this is what invokes a print. If you are actually collecting the specimen, use this function as well. We then go to next, where you would need to populate the cover sheet. Anything that's blue and bold is mandatory. This has already been preset, so there's nothing to change here. And you can see that there's a perform date, so this can be changed into the future if you need to say to the patient to get it in a future date. I'm going to leave it as it is. The priority is optional. The problems will come from the patient's record. Describe what those patient's diagnoses are. Clinical details is what you will need to update. The telephone number here I've pre-configured in my manage my profile settings, and there'll be another video to show you how to do that with the extension number pre-populated, and then the infection control requirement there, which I'm just going to put no. And once you've completed that, press next. So it's gone to the general radiology 1 form. So private patient, yes or no. Patient transport, it's a 2-week wait, yes or no. And you'll notice that this has got a green tick. Now, in some forms, this will still remain as a red exclamation mark, and this will still remain red. And what you can do there is, if there are any more mandatory fields on this form or on different pages, you could use the next button here at the bottom of the screen to flick through each of those pages until you've completed all of those mandatory forms. But if we're happy with that, and as you see we've got a green tick there, we can press finish. So because we did the collect specimen checkbox, this screen will appear. If you don't get this screen appeared and you are expecting to print something, you may have gone wrong. Collect specimen. This defaults to collect and associate specimen. So this was important if you're actually taking a swab or a sample whilst you're with the patient. And if you leave it pre-configured, it will say who's collected it and the time of when and date of when that's been collected. And that's what will show on the blood form. If that's not the intention and you do actually want the patient to be taking this paperwork to a phlebotomy team or maybe a community hospital, ensure you do the print labels only, which is the equivalent of the ICM request form. Once you've done that, you may press finish. And then the next screen we get here is the print screen. We ensure that it says local and we click local print, and when we do click that, we'll get a list of all the printing options that is associated to the machine, the PC or the laptop that you're on. And you can choose the physical printers, or you could use the Microsoft Print to PDF to save the document. If you are going to do that, ensure that you've logged into the computer as yourself and that you save it on your personal drive and you delete it once it's been dealt with, so that we're not leaving any identifiable documents on desktops. So you'd press OK and then it would print. I'm not going to do that in this scenario. I'm just going to finish here. And I'll get a warning there to say I've not printed it. Once that's been done, you'll notice in this list view that these are now pending specimen collection, and if this was a real patient, we'd get a return to say it's when it's been collected. Now if it says there specimen collected, again we may have gone wrong and left the previous screen to say collect and associate specimen. And if we scroll across here, it will say who's requested this and some more details about that actual order. If we've done it wrong, if we made a mistake, you can check the box here and you can click cancel request. So I'm going to cancel this x-ray. Finish. You can also modify requests as well, so you can make some modifications. So for example, things you could change are the date to be performed. So if I'd left this as the 28th and I actually meant this to be a future date, I can modify it rather than placing a new order. I can go in, choose this request information banner at the top, and I can make the changes that I need. I'm not going to do that in this scenario. I'm just going to cancel. Press finish. And if you do need a reprint, or you may ask another colleague, if this has already been printed and it's still pending specimen collection, you or a colleague will be able to select the box of which is appropriate and click reprint labels. It will show on screen your reprint labels if there was multiple. In this scenario we were only looking at the full blood count, and again you can click local print and then print them again. Handy if a patient's rang to say that they've lost their documentation. It just means that a new order doesn't need to be created. You can just reprint from an existing one. You can also choose to repeat any requests, so you can multi-select or single select and click repeat. Notice here the warning is just saying that the form and the information that was populated previously will be pre-populated from the previous selected request. And as you can see, the full blood count is there. Let's just collect specimen now and press next. And you'll be able to see that the clinical details is pulled through from previous. Now I'm just going to unselect this collect specimen, and I just want to show you where we may go wrong. If we don't click that and we go through and press next and press finish, we've got a warning in this scenario, and this is what this triangle also denotes. What that means is quite simply that the blood test has already been done within or been requested within the last 12 hours. And because it's a test patient, obviously that's what we're going to see on these test patients. However, what we can do there is just put in a mandatory comment for the warning, and we can press finish. Now you'll note that we've placed another request. It's there at the top of the screen, but what's not happened is we've not got a printout. So as we click in the box for the full blood count, we'll go to reprint labels. This won't actually work, but it will tell us that the labels cannot be reprinted because they were never produced in the first place. The scenario here is that we will have to select the row and we would have to collect specimen from these options. which would then invoke the screen that we saw previously and move it from collect and associate specimen to print labels. Again, this is quite handy if you have accidentally left the collect specimen tick box as null, rather than having to create an order again, or rather than having to cancel and place another one. You can go and collect the specimen and just print the labels as we've seen. Now, who can collect the specimen on this side of the screen really depends on the rights of the role of the person that's logged in. Most doctors, nurses, midwifery or clinical teams will be able to collect specimen. Administrative and clerical teams will not have that option, so you won't be able to ask them to do it for you. It will have to be somebody clinical. So that's the end of this video. I hope it was useful. Do keep an eye on YouTube for other videos that might help with your use of Lorenzo, including how to set up this results table in view here and these columns along the top, which again was proved useful for individual requirements.